So we reference here what Rashi says about Uravu, and you should multiply. So Rashi specifically quotes the Midrash, and he tells us that those people who are not involving themselves in being productive, in being fruitful and multiplying, are equivalent to those who are being shofech damim, to those who are spilling blood. By not, Rashi quotes them. So if you'll notice, number 3 at the end, he says, see Rashi and the Zohar. We're not going to go into the Zohar here, but Rashi specifically brings a Midrash, and the Midrash says that those people who are not active in Pru'uvu are equated to those people in the previous sentence who were shofech damim, who were spilling blood, i.e., if you're not going to fulfill your potential, then you have made the potential that is in the world less, or you've made the reality in the world less. Shiur, number 4, swarm. This is a mercha, so this is likely going to be related to what's come before, but mostly sweep us forward into what's going to come after it. Abstaining from murder, sur meira, keeping yourself away from evil, complemented by the fruitfulness and multiplication, yasei tov, will contribute to the effect that you will swarm and fill all voids, while deriving the maximum of your needs and desires, as stressed by the directional shape of the reading word. So again, this is referring us back to Uravu, because it's lightly connected to it, but mostly the fact that you're going to be able to go from place to place and fill each place is going to be you going away from the implication of those people who don't fulfill their potential are like people who are killing a part of what could be. Those people who do fulfill their potential are going to be able to fill that void and allow it to ba'aretz, on the earth, number 5, with a tipcha. So this is going to complete the previous thought and pause after it. Each one will find his proper place on the earth, which is well equipped to satisfy all its dwellers, as denoted by the closing shape of the directional reading word. So you're going to fill spaces that were empty before, and they will be available to you to meet your needs at those places. And the final phrase, uravuva. So remember, we had a tipcha before, so this is going to have to stand on its own. And again, it's at a sof pasuk, so it's going to have a stabilizing influence. Number 6, after you obtain qualities from the land and increase on it, your strength, wealth, and security will grow proportionally. So your growth in a place is going to be something that stands on its own after you have decided that you're going to fulfill your potential and you're going to keep yourself away from the desires and tendencies that keep you from being what you could have been. And that's going to stand by itself. It's going to be a self-evident fact in the way that you are. In the amount of space that you filled, it's going to show how well you did what you could have done. So again, it stands alone from Shiur Ba'aretz, pause, Uravuva. Your existence there, your filling the space, will be evidence of what you have done. So we talked about the way one word is and how it influences the word next to it. So we know in Hebrew that the letters Beged, Kefet, Beit, Gimel, Daled, Kaf, Pei, and Tav, if they come at the beginning of a word, they will have a dot in the word, and they'll get a harder sound, Beit instead of Beit, Kaf instead of Chaf, and so on, Pei instead of Fei. On the other hand, if the word before ends in Aleph, Hey, Vav, or Yud, then those letters from before, if they truly run into your word, will take away the dot. So we know uravu ends in a vav, and beit hey ba at the beginning of a word would normally be pronounced with a dot in the beit, but because the last word before ended uravu with vav, the beit loses its dot, so it's uravu va. Not va, but va. And we'll see that this is because these two words are strung together. These two words, by the reading notes, are read together, so that rule still applies. And we'll hopefully come to another instance this evening of one where the notes separate those two words out. So even though this rule of Aleph, Hey, Vav, Yud before Beged Kefet takes away the dots, we're going to find that we should have examples later where the notes in fact tell us that we keep the dot. So we're going to...
the Hoy, because you know it's on a ship and it's a Hoy.
Yeah.
Ship's a Hoy. But, you know,
it only applies while we're doing Parshat Noach, but okay.
But Baba, it's interesting because the Revuva, when it's together like this, or Baba, is like corresponding sort of to Shiur too. Revuva is like tens of thousands, right? Yeah, Revuva, Sheish Revuva, 10,000.
Yeah, I don't know what the second Vav is doing, but I'm thinking about it.
Well, okay, but
I'm thinking about it. Okay,
but it's still Revava. I didn't squint. It's Revava, which is interesting. This is in the same book as Shiur too, which is swarms of thousands of people.
Also in the same book for sure.
And again,
of course, it's right.
we'll read the sentence. So we're going to notice that ve'atem is going to stand separate from the command to pru-urvu, and shutzu va'aretz is going to separate itself out from urvuva. That your existence there will be a testament to what you did, not necessarily a consequence. It is a consequence, but it will also be something that stands on its own as a testament. Ve'atem peru urvu shirtzu va'aretz urvuva. This is actually the end of the Leah, so shirtzu va'aretz urvuva. But in any case.
I have two questions.
Is there enough books? Should we throw anything?
Two questions. So this, what we just did, is the commandment again. Like, it's at the beginning of it's in Bereshit, but because we're starting all over again, we have to reiterate the commandment. So it's the same commandment to multiply. My question really is, what is its connection to what we read right before it? Like, is there one?
Yes, so we said that you now have responsibility. So the responsibility of Adam Harishon, of the first man, was simply to populate. He didn't have a responsibility to his fellow man per se. And now what we're saying is, you repopulate, but you repopulate with care and consideration to your fellow man. So you've got the warning first. You've got to be you've got mastery over the animals. You can use the resources of the land, but people, you have to treat them with respect. Why? Because what happened after Adam? What happens in the next generation? One brother kills the other brother. They don't have any responsibility for each other. And
maybe he should have said that Shabbat Lamin should have been there too.
And Hevel can turn to God in all honesty and say, Hashomer achi anochi, am I really my brother's keeper? He doesn't know that.
But the Shem's fault, right?
So it's a philosophical question, and now we're starting again with new ground rules. You have to respect other people, not only physically but emotionally.
But there's a question: why didn't Hashem say to Adam Harishon about Shabbat Lamin? Because we see when he didn't. So the next thing was that let him murder. Maybe if Cain would have had that commandment, he wouldn't have done it.
So the question is,
he just gave him a clock.
The question is,
well,
never experienced death.
The question is, at what point do we need to have God legislate common sense? Things
common
that are
sense is not so common
things,
at every point.
Things that we can know or derive logically, the Gemara tells us aren't mentioned in Torah. If we can derive something logically, you have no need to have a pasuk or a sentence in Torah that tells us specifically not to do that. So, again, God turns to Hevel and says, Kol demei achicha tzoakim elai min adama. Your brother's blood is crying to me from the ground. You should have known. You should have known that this was something that you shouldn't have been able to do. You should have been able to derive it logically, intuit it. I didn't need to tell you explicitly.
He obviously did it.
Okay, but right, that's sort of the flow of the conversation there. Here, we see that, okay, so that was something that people obviously needed to be told explicitly. What was one of the sins of Dor Mabul, of the generation of the flood? The Maseh Hamas. They did things where they were just so inconsiderate and made it impossible for the other person to relate to you and deal with you. We're telling you that in the generations after Mabul, you can't act that way. You have to not only physically not kill each other, you have to emotionally try to be considerate and try to have a dan kol adam b'kaf zchut. You have to try to judge each person who you meet favorably if you can. Questions? Ready to go on? Ready to go on.
It's an appropriate time to read this pasuk because we're just now in Shushan Purim, and the whole mitzvah of matanot le'avyanim and mishloach manot, that's giving to others, sharing, which is the opposite. This is like brotherly love and unity for all. So I feel like just by learning this, it's like the opposite kind of thing. So you would never even come to this because everyone's sharing and because everybody's giving to others and all one, showing a Ahavat Yisrael.
And again, it's rather prophetic that's what starts the Second Temple period. The starting of the Second Temple period is hopefully there's this level of correction of looking after each other and not inculcating any sinat chinam into the generations moving forward into the Second Temple. Obviously, the message of Megillah Esther doesn't flow through as time goes on. But it was there, and it was attempted to be inculcated into the Jewish people through the Purim story, and through the act of Matanot Avyanim and Mishloach Manot Yisraehu. You should also make sure that if you've got something to eat, your neighbor also has something to eat. You shouldn't let them starve next to you. And we go on. 9/8. Bereshit Tet, Pasuk Chet, and he said, Vayomer. So you'll notice that this is not before the very first letter of the word. So this is a mapach. Looks exactly the same shape as a yativ, but, and it's going to go underneath the syllable that's accented. So it's not Vayomer, it's not Vayomer, it's Vayomer. So the yo, that syllable is the one that's going to have the accent under it, and that's the placement of the note. As opposed to a yativ, if this were a yativ, it would go even before the patach that's under the vav. If it was a mapach and it happened to go on that first syllable, it would go after the patach. So you can tell by the placement of the note that is a mapach, not a yativ. Now, you're looking quizzically. You got it? Okay. Vayomer, and he said, God tried to... So again, this is something that's going to take a previous concept, and then it's going to narrow it down and focus it, and perhaps tell us the consequences of it afterwards. Vayomer, and he said, God tried to encourage Noach to start a new life. And he said that at creation of the world, he also established principles to maintain and guard its totality for adequate functions and interrelations as indicated by the shape of the reading mark. We're going to sweep ourselves all the way back to Bereshit. We're going to say this is the way that the universe was designed to be working. And what's the consequence of that? Elokim. With a pashta, this is something that's going to emphasize and raise the meaning of that word and bring it forward into what goes after it, God above, number 2. So this is midat hadin. This is the aspect of judgment. God above stressed that the survivors of the flood were not left for the purpose to remember the past, but mainly to build a better tomorrow, with the impetus of the laws of nature as shown by the directional shape of the reading mark. So those laws of nature that Vayomer is going to sweep us forward, we're going to concentrate them not on worrying about what happened before, but saying, here's our new beginning, what are we going to do with God looking down and judging us from this point on? And we are now absolved of what happened from before. We don't have the responsibility for that, but we're going to move forward and we're going to be responsible for ourselves and for others from this point on. El Noach, to Noach. So again, you asked Racheli before, is each word a grouping? No. Are any words left out? No. Anything that has a note on it, if it's grouped together, then that gets a single paragraph to itself. So number 3, El Noach with a katon. So this is that 2-part note. So we're going to think that this phrase is going to have two meanings to it, possibly an upper one and a lower one. Primarily, he spoke to Noach because God saw in him a reliable follower of heavenly orders, as pointed out by the bipartite shape of the reading mark. So we're going to have communication coming from God to Noach, with Noach being a trusted person to relate that. So we've got the two aspects, what God says and what Noach actually hears, and we hope that both of those are fairly congruent, but we have to realize our conduit now is Noach, so he gets that 2-part implication to his name, what he's told and what he does. V'el banav with a mercha, so this is lightly connected to what's come before, but mostly sweeping us forward. So the conversation is not only to Noach, but the El Banav, number 4, the message was directed to Noach and to his sons to begin anticipating new developments and progress as related by the directional shape of the reading mark. So we're connected to, God is still speaking to, and his sons as well, but that's through the conduit of Noach, both through his ability to relate things properly with the high intention and his ability to perhaps be fallible and be human, so he's got the 2-part. But El Banav is connected to that. Ito, closing the phrase, going back with the tipcha, and relating to El Banav, and then pausing afterwards. With him, number 5. Not only shall they cooperate with Noach's endeavors, but also the sons of future generations shall be connected with him, and jointly continue to rebuild the world as denoted by the closing shape of the directional reading mark. So,
Donated?
Sorry?
You said donated.
Denoted. I'm sorry, as denoted by the closing shape of the directional reading mark.
That's what, Arlie, did you get that pledge from, he's always saying he pledges in my name, so you donated the pledge. Where's Arlie,
So, the idea is that the sons are going to work in cooperation with Noach, and the efforts are going to continue from there on, with them, again, being able to both hear some things from God directly, but mostly to take what Noach has funneled down to them and allow it to become reality in the world. Lemor, for saying. So this is at a sof pasuk, so this is going to be a stabilizing influence, and it's going to be something that sort of stands on its own. They shall be prepared for saying to their offspring about the catastrophic events that resulted from disobedience of heavenly principles which were established at creation by Yomer Elohim in relationship to the beginning of the sentence. So even though at the beginning of the sentence we're saying you're going to move forward and you're not going to have to remember those things that have come before, you're still witnesses to the generation before, and you are going to relate those events as consequences of doing wrong. So that's why the word stands by itself. Because the rest of the sentence is saying, this is what you do going forward. You don't have to worry about what went back. But by the way, you've got the memories of what happened before,
Trauma.
and you're going to tell those stories so that people know that compliance from here on in does have a consequence. You're going to be the people who are going to be able to say that acting poorly has consequence. Is going to be part of your story that you're going to be able to relate to your children and grandchildren and great grandchildren and so on for 10 generations on because of how long you live. So you're going to be examples of people who can relate the fact that actions do have consequence.
How did you know that the last pasuk was the end of the Iliad?
He's read it a few times.
Because I've read it a few
Right,
times.
because I'm looking. How did you know
He's
that?
read this book.
Right.
It's not part of the papers. It doesn't have anything to do with
I'm looking. How did
with
the Shani and everything, whatever it was? What Iliad was that?
that. I don't know.
Mr. Know-it-all. Okay.
I don't know. I didn't say I was Mr. Know.
I know.
I'm a GP. I know almost nothing about almost everything, as opposed to a specialist who knows almost everything about almost nothing. So we're going to intone we're going to read the pasuk with the notes, and again we'll notice that God's relating it to Noach is going to sort of stand by itself, and then it's going to flow from him to the sons. But this is the new order, and the being able to tell about what happened before, Lemor, is again going to stand by itself, because that's part of the memory of the sons of Noah, but it's not what they specifically are going to base the world on. So that word Lemor is going to stand out by itself. Vayomer Elokim el Noach el banav ito Lemor. And we are on page 78, Reshitet, Pasuk Tet, 9:9. Va'ani. This is a zakef gadol. Help me if I drew it backwards. Did I draw it backwards?
Yes.
I drew it backwards.
Right.
Oh, look. I drew it the right way. I was just standing on my head.
Look at that.
All right. So this is something that has separated itself out,
Wait a minute.
but also has.
You read the first time.
The two Likudot come after the line.
They do.
Yes.
It's hard to tell. No,
Oh,
it's
my
hard.
eyes.
The two Nikudot,
No,
the two
it's
Nikudot
not
come
your
after the
eyes.
line.
Yeah, it's not your eyes. This is really hard.
Yeah.
So this is going to have 2 and possibly 3 meanings that might be implied to the word, and it might also have a separation from what's come from before.
I stand corrected. You're right. According to Nusach Ashkenaz, the Cape Gadol, 2 dots and then a line.
Wait,
You are correct.
is it as the Cape Gadol? Oh, sorry. It won't be the first time.
Va'ani, and I.
But I really didn't.
When I created the world and I established principles to guard the order, it was set and deemed to function as indicated by the shape of the reading mark in relationship to the beginning of the previous sentence.
Tell me music. Is that your phone, is it? Have you
So-
turned it on?
God is saying that this is the way that I set the world up originally, and these are the new orders and the new rules that it's going to function through from here on in, and that's going to be separated, the 2 are going to be separated out. And we've got a note, Va'ani, and I, at the beginning of the sentence, is a cheshbon nefesh, is an accounting of the soul, a plan for the future with respect to the past. So what's going to go from here on in is going to be a new set of rules that are going to take into account the failures of the past and give society a chance to redeem itself, because now it's got warning of some of the mistakes that it had done before. So now we have the idea of not being capital in terms of crimes with each other. You can't kill each other. But not only that, you can't embarrass each other or do small things that are going to make the other person. So you have no actual murder. You have no acts of Hamas, which are what destroyed the first generation. and you have a different relationship with the animals and a different relationship with the resources of the world. So you have mastery over them, which means you can use them to be more productive, and they fall under your sway, but you also have to be careful in how you manage them. Hineni, this is a mercha, so this is going to be lightly connected to what's come before, but mostly sweep us forward into what's going to come afterwards. 2, I readily. At this stage of development, in view of recent events, I readily stress a rule of non-interference in the course of natural life, as shown by the directional shape of the reading mark. So it's going to be connected to the thought of Va'ani and God who set the rules, but mostly it's going to tell us that you have mastery, but you also have to recognize that the rules of nature are there. Mekim, this is with that tavir, so this is the note that has the mercha on the bottom with that dot that's sheltered on the inside. So we're going to have the concept of something being made safe or sheltered by the interpretation of this word. Mekim, established, number 3. Therefore, I establish a standard by which everyone shall live his own pattern of life without intrusion from someone else, so that he can protect his own interests and preserve his original characteristics as stressed by the shape of the reading mark. So the new set of rules that God is going to set up is going to be something that allows each and every person from here on in to have the ability to form a stable both emotional base and physical base from which they can grow their life and their potential from there. So the stability is established in the new set of rules that the world is going to work by. Et briti, with my treaty, with the tipcha. So this note is going to sweep us back to what's come from before and then pause slightly afterwards. An order shall be established where everyone shall find security with my treaty, regardless of his own potentials and way of living, as referred backwards by the directional shape of the reading mark. So we're going to get that stability, which is going to be something that is going to be in this covenant, in this deal that God is signing with you from here on in. Itchem, with you, with the etnachta, the stabilizing middle of the sentence, perhaps with something elevated to the interpretation of that we're going to assign to this word phrase. Number 5, although at this time I make this covenant with you now, it shall be binding forever to assure safety and individual freedom, as denoted by the stabilizing shape of the reading mark. So even though the deal is only being made with the people who are in the world right at this point, it is in fact going to be something that is stable. It is going to be the condition of the world from here on in. It is going to be something that you can trust in and rely upon. There is always a reaction to uncertainty and change, and stability comes from knowledge of things that stay the same and things that don't have any tendency to change. So you are guaranteed the stability of the rules staying the same from here on in. Whereas before you had a set of rules that were set before the flood, and God came and said, I can't tolerate life like this anymore. It's just not going to be productive. It's not going to lead to things doing what they're supposed to do, which is essentially what the phrase Vayar Elokim ki tov, God saw that it was good. What does it mean? It means the thing was doing what it was supposed to do. So the world had come to a point where ki tov was no longer possible. Therefore, the world has to be reset with a new set of rules, and those new set of rules will give you stability. V'et zarachem, and with your seed, with a tipcha, so this is going to sweep us backwards into what's come from before, so it's going to include the first half of the sentence, and it's going to pause slightly after that. Consequently, that accord is made, and with your seed, whom you represented at the incipient stage of the new history, as suggested by the reverse inclination of the directional reading mark. So, this tipcha is going to tell us that this phrase, that God is going to make this new deal with you, and it's going to continue with V'et Zarachem, and with every generation that you produce after this generation of the flood. And that's going to be separated out from Acharechem, after you, with the Sof Pasuk. So we're going to get, again, stability from the Sof Pasuk. However, if distant descendants after you ignore this fact, no flood by water will ever occur, but total chaos will be affected by other means, and another beginning will take place. So, even though you are